Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kyla Hannington, and I'm the Public Outreach and Engagement Division Chief with the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights, the county's civil and human rights education and enforcement agency. Our office investigates complaints of civil rights discrimination, combats human trafficking around the region, ensures all people can access county government services in the language of their preference, and provides opportunities for learning on matters of social justice and human rights importance. Community Conversations is a joint series between our office and our frequent program partners, the Prince George's County Memorial Library System, in which we feature people doing incredible things in and around Prince George's County, including county staff. With me as co-host are two pretty fantastic Prince George's County employees, Dr. Audrey Lau with the Prince George's County Memorial Library System, and Tiana Davis, the outreach specialist with the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights. Today, we are delighted to welcome Samantha Howard, the County Executive's Latino Affairs Liaison. So I am going to take a moment just before we start to introduce you to Samantha more fully, and then we're going to dive in. Prior to her role with county government, Samantha Howard served as the coordinator of recruitment and community relations at Prince George's Community College for over 15 years. During her tenure, she championed the cause of underrepresented student populations, forged valuable community partnerships, and broadened recruitment opportunities for Hispanic and Latino residents. Notably, she advocated for inclusive language in the college's application process and spearheaded initiatives to eliminate out-of-state tuition for undocumented county residents and DACA recipients. She was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and has been a resident of Prince George's County since 1989. She earned her General Studies, Associate of Arts in Communications and Speech from Prince George's Community College, and continued her education at the University of Maryland Global Campus, where she obtained a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies. Samantha has received numerous accolades, including Mentor of the Year, the Student Services Cracker Jack Award, and the Envision Success Star during her time at PGCC. So Samantha, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited to be able to sit and chat and get to tell people what we do here at County Exec's office.
Awesome. Well, that's actually my first question, which is, can you start us off by talking to us about the role of Latino Affairs Liaison? Like, what is that role? What does it mean? What does your work entail?
So the Latino Affairs Liaison is a unique position within the Office of the County Executive. And what I do is I serve as a bridge between the Latino community and the local government. So my role is to ensure that the voices of our Hispanic and Latino residents are heard, their needs are attended to, and that their concerns are addressed. I advocate for equitable access to resources, services, and opportunities within Prince George's County from north to south for all of our Latino residents. And this involves building relationships, both within the community as well as inside the walls of government, coordinating programs, and fostering communication between the Latino community and government agencies, as well as serving as an advisor to the county executive for matters that affect the successful civic, social, and economic engagement of our Latino community here in Prince George's County. And just to give you a little bit of context to that, Prince George's County has almost 1 million residents. It's like 900,000. And out of that 1 million residents, we have over 250,000 Latino residents. So it's a huge population. It's about 20% of the population in Prince George's County. And within the school system, it's about 40% of our school system. So it's a very young population. Historically has been in North County, but we are seeing boom in South County right now of resident growth here in the county. So yeah, so in a nutshell, that's what I do as a Latino Affairs Liaison.
Thank you very much. I have one more question, then I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues here. Can you just remind us, for those of us who don't already know, how long have you been doing this for?
1 year.
Okay, is it like a 1 year anniversary? Like, should we be?
Right, so I call it my county-versary, but yes, it's been 1 year. August 14th was 1 year, so a year and a month. And this is my second Hispanic Heritage Month in the county, and it's only been a year, but we've done so much in this past year in terms of visibility, access, creating programs, all of the different activities. We have a board as well, so we have a Latino advisory board that is formed, and there are 14 members of that board. We have a volunteer group. So we have a second position in Latino affairs. So we have a Latino affairs assistant too. So it's a growing program, and I'm really excited for the work that we've been able to do and the partnerships that we've been able to create over the past year.
That's awesome. I know I just said that I was going to hand it over, but I lied because I'm now going to ask you about something you just said, which is, well, tell us about the board. Like, what is I want to hear more about what the board is, what their function is, and how they're connecting with the community. And then I'm going to mute myself so that my friends can take over.
So the Latino Advisory Board is comprised of 14 members, and they are residents of our community, and they are in different stakeholder categories. So we have, just to name a few of our awesome members, we have the president of the Prince George's Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We have Board of Education member, District 8, Madeline LaSalle Frazier. We have our nonprofit sector with Sagrario Ortiz from El Poder de Ser Mujer. I mean, we have so many. We have our co-chairs, Joy Solazano and Omar Eaton Martinez, and our vice chair, Yolanda Rivera Quintanilla, and she's amazing. They're all amazing. And so they come from different parts of the county. They represent different stakeholder categories, from disability, veterans, entrepreneurs, business owners, I mean, you name it. And so we work together to meet the needs of the community, to kind of listen to the community, to see what are the issues. And we also use our networks to get information out to the community so that the community can engage successfully and meet the goals that they have for themselves when they're engaging with the government.
When you first started in this role, like what were your top priorities? Like what were some issues that you, or not really issues, but what did you feel like should be addressed first?
I think the first thing that I wanted to address was visibility for this position. This position has existed for a few administrations, but with County Executive, also Brooke, the position has been elevated and brought into the office of the County Executive, particularly into multicultural affairs. And so bringing visibility and letting the community know this position exists and this is how this position works for you. And there's what we do, and then there's what we don't do, right? But just getting that education out into the community so that the community knows how to interact with it, because there's no use that I exist in this position if the community doesn't even know what I'm here for, or doesn't know how to access me, or doesn't see me in the community. It's not going to be a benefit to anyone. It's not going to be a benefit to the community. It's not going to be a benefit to the government. So visibility was the big kind of like my first 30 days. And I was very fortunate to start right around Hispanic Heritage Month. So it was optimal timing to just be out into the community. Right after that, we did listening sessions because I am a member of this community. So I am a Latina living in Prince George's County, and I have my own experience, right, as a Latina in this county, but I know that my experience isn't unique, and it's not the only experience, right? So I needed to be in the community. So we did 9 listening sessions, one in every councilmatic district, over the span of a few, probably like 6 weeks. We did those 9 sessions, and that was a really good opportunity to connect with the county residents from north to south. From there, we developed, okay, these are the issues that kept rising to the top. These are the ones that like our top 5. And from there, we were able to start developing programming, start developing partnerships and relationships in those areas that needed the most attention.
Okay. So as you mentioned, like the the Spanish speaking community in Prince George's County is continuously growing. How do you get the word out to the community as a whole, or as many as possible, about what services that they have access to, like what resources are available?
That's a really good question, because that is one of the things that came out of our listening sessions, was that there was a lot of information, but much of that information wasn't reaching its intended target. And sometimes it was something as simple as the document or the flyer or the information needed to be translated, right? Or a little more complex, as in a lot of people aren't in email. So emailing things out might not be the best way to reach them, right? We started leveraging our social media platforms. Facebook is top. You would think maybe it would be like Instagram or something else, but actually Facebook is one of our top ones in terms of like gathering information. But then what really rose to the top for us was WhatsApp groups. So our community tends to be in WhatsApp because, you can use it internationally. You don't necessarily have to have phone service. So, with Wi-Fi, you can connect. And it's just kind of like a cultural tool that we use, like a cultural technology tool where Latinos are in WhatsApp groups. And so we joined a ton of WhatsApp groups and just started dropping information in, and we're watching that information spread and we're watching that information reach its target. Then we started to get questions and we started to get engagement. From there, we developed our newsletter, and Maria, our assistant Maria Chavez in Latino Affairs, has really spearheaded that. And it went from a dormant newsletter to over 7,000 people are now receiving that newsletter biweekly. But during Hispanic Heritage Month, we're putting it out weekly because there's a lot of information to share during this month. And so we have people genuinely engaging with this content, and it's completely in Spanish too. So the newsletter is 100% in Spanish. People can use the translate button to get English, but on socials, we try to share in English and in Spanish. And it's been very well received. And then our trusted community partners are now also putting information about their programs, their free programs or their resources into our newsletter. So it's not just our news, but the news also of our trusted community partners, so that when this information reaches a community, because this is a little bit unrelated but related, is that in our community, there is sometimes misinformation. Bad information that's given out, or fraud, or different things where people are taking advantage of certain communities. And so we try to make sure that we vet the information that we put out and that it comes from credible sources. So when people engage with this information and these resources, they know they can engage with trust. So we're not only trust building for ourselves, but also trust building with our community partners as well.
Okay,
So that was a
WhatsApp is
long-winded version.
no, it was great. WhatsApp is such a great idea. I never even thought of that. So, how do people sign up for the newsletter?
So they can go onto our socials and there is a link to sign up. If you have a newsletter and you share it with someone else, they can also sign up for it there. At events, we also collect emails or telephone numbers, and we can add also to the newsletter if they want to be added manually. We can do that as well. And then we also share our newsletter online too. So if you're not getting it in email, you can still see it online, no problem at all.
We have some great comments and questions. So I'm just going to take a moment and just share some of the things that are coming in, because some of them are also like timely to what you're talking about. So one of our wonderful regular viewers says that she finds her students, she's a teacher, educator here in the county, and she finds that many of her students laugh when she tells them that she's not on social media other than Facebook, but she says that she's trying to have a presence on other sites to communicate differently. So appreciated that. And then she added that she appreciates you saying that we have to accept and receive the various communities as we expect our population to receive us, and that it's a reciprocal relationship.
And that's a really, I do want to make a comment on that. That is really important because we have such a beautifully diverse county, and I think that the more time we spend together and the more time that we try to build empathy within our communities and education too, right? Educating us not only on ourselves, but on other communities, we can find the commonalities and we can find that intersectionality that really does make us one county, right? Like all together in this one county, and find ways to live together and to understand each other and work together. We'll find we have a lot more similarities than we do differences.
Yeah, this is literally speaking to the heart of the Office of Human Rights right now with that, so I appreciate that. And I do want to, there's a few more questions. I want to get them from the viewers, and I do want to come back to the conversation about diversity. And so I'll just give you a preview, which is I want to talk about the diversity in the people that you serve in the Latino community, so we can kind of get a sense of who's here in Prince George's County. But we'll come back to that. Let me continue with some audience comments. So again, our friend here says, being an educator, a special educator, she's interested in how to build a bridge with multilingual students and educators in providing services in that realm. And I was wondering if you can speak to that.
So one of our board members works right here with the ARC, and she is Latina Spanish speaking, and she's done a lot of work to try to engage with our multilingual families and also our sometimes what we call mixed status households. A lot of times families may not want to engage with receiving services or really understanding certain processes because of the fear of maybe somebody in the house isn't undocumented. Maybe the child is documented, but maybe somebody in the house isn't. So they may what appears to be disengaged, but it's not out of like apathy or not wanting to be involved. It's out of fear. So we work with our family units. And I think that that's very important. Sometimes we hear, well, I can't reach the child, or I can't reach the student, or I can't reach, but you have to understand that we as a community move as family units. So you may need to reach the parent. You may need to connect with the family unit, as opposed to just trying to connect with the child. But also when connecting with, especially students, because I come from education before, is if there's a process or a system that you want a student to learn, like college entry, let's say, let's use that as an example. And you're talking to somebody who just came from another country or who may only know an educational system from another country. There is a learning curve to understanding what it is to, I mean, there's a learning curve for those who are here, right? Of how to register for college, and what does the FAFSA mean, and what is a college deadline, and what is a college essay, and what's a recommendation letter, all these things. And then having the burden on the student, if it's all in English, right? Having the burden on the student to then have to go translate that back to the parent in another language, which they might not know the jargon for, right? How do you say FAFSA in Spanish? You don't, right? There's no real word for translating that. So providing as much as possible information in the language of origin or the language of choice is really important. And then just helping families through those, not having the expectation, oh, well, they should know, or, if you haven't been shown, or if you come from a different system, then you may need kind of like that extra help to be able to engage with students and their families.
Thank you. That's a lot. It's a lot to think about, and the work that can be done and should be done and is being done, and sort of in both directions. And so this is a follow-up question, which is, how do we recruit multilingual instructors to the public education community? Is that a question you feel like you can field?
I'm sorry, I froze up for a little bit. Can you please repeat that question?
It says, how do we recruit multilingual instructors into the public education community?
Well, interestingly enough, I worked in HR for 1 year of my life. And one of the biggest things is what I hear just from the community and even from current educators is, number one, you have to create a space where people want to come into, right? You have to create a space that is appealing, that says, you're going to belong, this is, and show that that's the direction you want to go into. Number two, being bilingual is an asset. It really is. So your pay has to reflect that, right? So it does have to reflect that now, because you're doing above and beyond, like in terms of like, you may be doing the job of like two people, right? Because you're doing it in English and you can do it in Spanish. So it does need to reflect that. And also you have to create pipelines for mobility, right? It's for upward mobility, and people who have a skill that is very desirable. Your pay or your compensation or your upward mobility has to reflect, it has to entice people to come into these roles. I know that for myself, being bilingual has always been a benefit to me, and has always given me the opportunity to kind of like leverage that in terms of like compensation or just flexibility, and having more roles open up to me because I had that particular skill. Right. So it does have to reflect that. And then you have to have good experiences. So you have to have people who are currently in the system have good experiences for more people to come into the system. Because if they say, hey, this isn't a good experience, people aren't things get out. People are going to hear it, and our community is very connected in that way, that once you have a positive outcome, people will share that. But if you have a negative outcome, people will share that too. So you want to ensure that the outcomes are good for the people who are currently in the system, so that it will attract others as well.
Thank you very much. I had said that I wanted to talk a little bit about diversity. So I just want to go back there before we move on. And then I'll hand it back to Audrey and Tiana. But I know that we use that. It's a term I'm actually not super comfortable with just in general, any kind of monolithicizing of any group of people. So like the Latino community, like what, there isn't one, right? There's diversity of backgrounds, there's diversity of political opinion, there's diversity of family heritages. It's an incredibly diverse population, as populations are. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about who are the people that you are working with in Prince George's County, who are residents in Prince George's County? Give us some examples of folks with whom you're interacting and getting to know that live here in the county.
Okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right that it is a very diverse community, and there's two conversations here to have, right? The first conversation is, a lot of people ask me, like, what should I say? Should I say Hispanic? Should I say Latino? Should I say Latinx? There's a new term now, Latine, which is with the E, and these are ever evolving terms, right? And it's in all honesty not terms that we, like, as a people, chose for ourselves. So these are terms that have been developed over time and bulked in a lot of different countries into these few terms, right? A lot of times, if you're addressing someone, the best thing to do is just be like, how would you prefer, do you consider yourself Latino or Hispanic? And everybody will have their choice and their preference. The other thing is, what's our demographic here in Prince George's County? So out of those 250,000 plus residents, the largest population that we have is Salvadorian residents. And so over 60,000 residents are from El Salvador. Mexico would run in at number 2. And then other countries like Guatemala, Honduras. We have a small population, but growing population of Puerto Ricans, which is where I'm from, that have come here, particularly after the Hurricane Maria. And we have some populations that are a little more like come and go, depending on what's going on in the political environment too. So we have an influx of Venezuelan residents that are coming. We have had from a lot of other countries as well, like I said, Guatemala. And there are nuances to each demographic. And what I find interesting, which is something that kind of came up, and even I didn't really know how to manage it when it came up, and this is before my time here, was our Latino or Hispanic Latino brothers and sisters that don't speak Spanish. So we have some countries that speak indigenous languages. And so, you would think, oh, they're from Guatemala, then did we just translate everything in Spanish, or let's just talk in Spanish? And so it was interesting to come up against that and see that there wasn't an understanding. Like, even some of our groups don't consider themselves Hispanic or Latino. They consider themselves Mayan, or indigenous peoples. So there's even that kind of bridge that we need to create within these communities in order to serve all of our communities. I know that the public school system did a really good job, Jennifer Love, in interpretation services to quickly act and start getting people who spoke Mam or other indigenous languages in order to serve our residents. So there are communities that are traditional, right? That, like North County, where we have a lot of our Salvadorian community. And then there are our newer communities, like in South County, Fort Washington, Oxon Hill, that are now seeing an influx of Latino residents, when the typical migration of Maryland was, from Montgomery County down University Boulevard into like the Langley Park area, and probably stopping I would say right around Greenbelt. And then there's a jump. And so now you see it in South County, with a little bit even in like the Capitol Heights area. So that Hillcrest Heights area. So it's been really interesting to watch our population flux, right, and change, and really beautiful at the same time.
Can you talk about some services that are maybe underused or underutilized, or just like a lot of people don't know about them? Because earlier you mentioned Sigrario. I don't know if I pronounced her name correctly, but I've worked with them at a
Mhm.
previous job, and like I love El Poder. Like I love what they do for the students who go through the programs. Like it's such a great program.
I do think that there are a few services um, that would be beneficial for the community to engage with. But like I said, there's that learning curve. And I'm glad that you brought up the example of Sagrario, because that is one of the topics. Sagrario does such a great job of creating these opportunities for what are entrepreneurs, right? People who want to start their own businesses, who have a skill, to learn a skill to be able to do that. And they want to do that because they want to feed their families, right? They want to achieve their dreams, right? And they have goals for themselves. And I think that the process sometimes of like how to get a license, how to do business correctly, right? How to get all of the permits or things that you may need to run a successful business can sometimes be a cumbersome or complex process to manage when you're just starting out. Right. And you may not have a ton of information on it. And it doesn't necessarily read as easily when you go online to look for it, or it's not readily available in certain languages. So those that can be quite complex, and we are working to try to get that information streamlined and to have it in Spanish, and to create opportunities for people to be able to get the licenses that they want to run these businesses, right? And to learn how do I run my business within the law, right? And make it something that's beneficial for me, and how do I scale from that, right? Like how do I go from a smaller business to a larger business, to eventually getting big contracts, and being able to support, my family and my future goals as an entrepreneur. And a business owner. And we know that in the state of Maryland, not just in Prince George's County, Latinos make up a huge part of entrepreneurs and business owners in the state of Maryland. So how do we support them in getting the information that they need so that they can do it well and correctly?
You mentioned the state, so I was going to segue to a slightly off topic, from general to very specific, which is I believe you just won an award or featured or highlighted by the governor's office. Am I correct about this?
Yeah.
Can you
Yes.
tell us about you?
So as along with my role as a Latino Affairs Liaison, I am a commissioner on the Governor's Commission for Caribbean Affairs, and very intentionally because I am from Puerto Rico, which is in the Caribbean. So wanting to represent La Isla del Encanto, which is the island of enchantment, in matters on a state level, and being connected on that level is very enlightening in terms of like what's going on in our other communities, what's going on in our other counties. I've had the privilege to be able to work with, speak to, bounce ideas off of some of the other liaisons and directors in other counties. This role does exist in many of the other counties, in different iterations. Not all are liaisons, some are directors, but we do similar work. And being able to connect with them and see what's happening across our county lines, and how does that impact our residents here? Because the reality is that there will be overlap, right? People work in other counties, live in this county, receive services, have family, all of these different variations. Our work is, the county line shouldn't separate us, because it's all the same work and we're serving the same people. And we have similar missions in terms of wanting our community to be able to successfully engage, right? So if we can share best practices, if we can understand what we're doing. So being on the Governor's Commission does give me a lot of access to data and information, and just resources too, to say, oh, I didn't know about this program, or I didn't know about these services, and how do we bring these services to Prince George's County? So it's been really nice. I've really enjoyed being on that commission.
That's great. And so how long have you been in that role for?
A little less than a year, I want to say. I
Okay.
want to say it'll be a year towards the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a lot. Like, so in 1 year, like just on a personal level, the amount that you've learned and brought and done and engaged has been huge, right?
Yeah, it has. So I don't want people to think that this is an overnight success either, because it's not. It hasn't been. My time at the community college, I'm very grateful for that time at the community college, because that's where I formed my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I started to learn about this work. While I did Hispanic and Latino recruitment, it was bigger than that, because at the time when I first started at the college, which was almost 20 years ago, it was a long time ago. I started out as a student. Okay, I was a student there, and then I started working on call, right? And I remember when I was working on call, front desk, answering the phone, going to events. The dean at the time asked me, they didn't have any Latino recruiters or any bilingual recruiters. And they were like, if you were to create a program to bring in Latino students, like, what would you do? And I wrote up a proposal, and they gave me a grant to run the event. And I fell in love with that work. And I fell in love with, like, how did I get here? How did I land here? And as I became more and more successful, I started to look at what were the differences between my success and people who weren't being successful, right? Because it's not that I'm like any smarter than anybody else, or I had technically any more resources than anybody else. A lot of it was access to information. Somebody said, here's this piece of information. Or I would get stuck somewhere and someone would say, oh, go and talk to this person. Or they would recommend me with someone, or they would give me an opportunity. Right. And I said, how can I replicate my success in a broader sense? Right. So when we were bringing students in that had the desire to go to school, sometimes they would be faced with, they had the desire to go to school, but maybe they lacked resources in terms of, like, maybe it was their transportation, or maybe it was their parent wasn't fully on board because they didn't understand the process, or maybe it was they had food insecurity. So I spent a lot of my time on the social service side, even though that wasn't my job, to ensure that people had the things that they needed so they could focus on going to school, because you can't go to school, especially at the post-secondary education, right? Where if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, or you don't know where you're living, or you don't have funds to go back and forth from school, you're going to drop out, right? Because you don't have to be there. It's not like school where you're like mandated to be there, right? So I spent a lot of my time doing that and creating pipelines with programs who had students who could come into it but needed a little extra assistance. So those were like our students with disabilities, our foster youth, our teen parents who needed a little bit more of what we call front loading, right? To get them into the school environment. And then through that, and through mentorship, which is why I won the Mentor of the Year, and through just guidance, I started to see positive outcomes. And those positive outcomes led to what? More referrals. People would bring in whole families. Every year I would have a new cousin or a new brother or a new sister that would come in and say, hey, let's go through the process. And so creating those positive outcomes. So when I came here to the county, it was very easy to translate that same skill set, but on a broader scale, over more topics, not just education, but over a lot more topics, and bring a lot of those relationships with me, and in the support that I've received, not only, within the government and the county executive support, but also from my own community. And so it's been a really nice journey. When I sit and I don't think I've sat and really thought about it. I've just been kind of go, go, go. But as I sit here and think about it, it's been really nice. And I hope for even more over
Awesome.
my time here, however long that may be.
That's wonderful. So I love that. And I just there was a follow-up question from one of our viewers who's asking, can you speak to workforce development program for Latino students? She's wondering if there can be more internship opportunities specifically targeting the Latino population.
So I know that we work very closely with Employ Prince George's, and they have some amazing programs. And they've also prioritized having like Latino leadership and representation within their staff as well, and creating opportunities. They've worked closely like with programs like Sagrario's program to help support people who are going through this and getting the training and the resources that they may need. I know that for many of our youth, there are programs out here, I want to say like Fine Corps and the SYP program that we have, which actually extended the age this year to, I believe, 24, if I'm not mistaken. And so those are opportunities. And we worked with SYP this year to create more outreach, more direct outreach for our Latino families, and spent some time talking with Latino families and saying, why haven't you signed up for this, or why haven't you engaged? Because it's fine for people who engage, and sometimes people who don't engage, but we want to know like why are residents not engaging with certain programming. This summer, we did a partnership with Eco Latinos, and they had a summer camp, which was out of the International High School at Langley Park, completely free. And it was for Prince George's and Montgomery County students, and we did outreach for them. They had such a good time. Like everything was in Spanish, the families were able to see their presentations at the end of it. And it was so nice to see this. And all of the people who got into the program did not know this existed. So it was just a matter of making sure that it was outreach, that the outreach was targeted, and that they were able to engage and have a positive outcome. I know that next year they will not struggle to fill those camp seats, and we're very excited to see more people reach out to our office and say, "Hey, how do we connect? How do we come to have successful outcomes within the Latino community?"
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I've been a little quiet. One of the things that I live in Hyattsville area, Mount Rainier, and during the pandemic, I noticed in particular certain events were happening in the United States, and my area turned into a ghost town. And people who would normally be out in soccer fields and playing with their families and things like that were afraid to go out. And I guess one of the things that I would like to ask about is, how are we helping this community feel safe? How are we helping them feel welcome? That these are, that county, the library and other, because I think one of the things you speak to is, people not knowing about things, but I think a lot of people don't feel safe or welcome. And is there something that we can be doing as county organizations to kind of help these communities? Because it's very near and dear to my heart. I want everybody to feel like the library is their space, that it's a safe space to come and to learn and to use the computers, because we have so much information, but I often feel that we're not getting, like you said, that information out there. What can we do? What is the work that needs to be done?
I think the biggest thing is building trust with communities. We have a lot of people that reach out to us and say, "Hey, like we don't know how to engage." And I was like, "Well, find one family. Like, have you reached out to one family in your community?" And they're like, "No, we don't know where to start." And you have to, sometimes you have to go out to people too, and that is another thing, right? And then there's also the understanding of, how do people engage with certain systems? Like, do people really have the space to engage with, like, let's say the library, right? If you're working 12, 14 hours a day, and you're getting home late, and you have maybe a grandparent at home watching children, the only person that's really going to be able to take that child to the library is going to be the grandparent. So are we targeting grandparents? Are we creating multi-generational activities? Because just last night we had a conversation in one of the community centers, and the commentary was around why children aren't coming to the community centers. And there was a comment from a resident saying, well, I don't want my child to just go out by themselves. I'm here with them, but I'm just not going to have them just go over there because I don't know what's happening if I don't have my eyes on them, right? So maybe that institution feels like they're safe and they know that they're safe, but have they translated that to the parents who are already afraid, right? Who may feel like, well, don't go there because it may be too much attention, right, to our household if we're a mixed status household, or they don't know what are the requirements, right? So will I have to give up information in order to get a library card? Do I have to give a social security number? Do I have to give these things? Like what do they have this information for?
Those are no's for anyone listening. Those are no's. No social security cards. Nothing like that. Just address and proof of where you live. That's it. So
right.
Yep.
So just things like that, are the kinds of things that people may be going through people's head. But also the sense of belonging, I think, is really important, because we talk a lot about like DEI, right? Like diversity, equity, and inclusion. But some people have like DEIB or DEB, right? At the belonging piece. And that comes through a variety of things. One is representation. A person is always going to feel more comfortable if they see someone that looks like them in the same space, because they're going to understand, okay, that we belong here. We can take space. We can take up space here, or not be as hesitant. Number two is also the cultural competency. Like, are your offerings culturally competent, right? Are the bilingual or the multilingual happenings, and I'm not saying just the library, I just said in general, right? Do they happen outside of certain celebration months, right? Like, do we have multicultural offerings year round? Have we sat and actually asked, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be within your own system, but like, let's say you go to an event or something like that. Take that time to create questionnaires, to create service. And it might not be you send it on an email and you get answers. It might be you actually have to have a person, old school, writing down, how did you get here today? Or what made you come to this event? Or how did you find out about it? Which was what we asked last night. How did you find out about the event? Everybody that was there said that they saw it on Facebook. So we know it's getting out through Facebook, and so now we could take that and say, okay, well, if we know that got out, then maybe we can trickle out the next thing. And it's really just about learning each other as communities. I think sometimes we think what's going to work for one community is going to work for another community, and that's not always the case. But I'm telling you, once a community feels like they have had a positive outcome, they will share. And just asking them to share too, a lot of times is very simple. Say, hey, did you have a good experience here? Hey, can you share it with someone else? So those kinds of things. But representation is really important. It really can't be understated how important that is when trying to engage with the community.
Thank you.
So you mentioned, affinity months. And so I did want to talk a little bit. It is Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th. And so I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about what that means. And there can be good things about that. And I'm sure that there are. And there's also bad things. And I think that we've started to touch on how sometimes these there can be limitations, right? But I was hoping you could take some time and talk about the month that we're in.
Yeah, so I do love that it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and a lot of people have the question about like, why is it half of 2 months? But it's because it's right around a lot of the Independence Days for a lot of Latino countries. So that's why it's September 15th to October 15th. However, I like to say that we get 2 months, right? Because events start way before September 15th and they end right after it. So I'm going to say that we have 2 months. But I think it's very important because all communities, not just the Latino community, all communities should be celebrated, especially for what they bring to a nation like the U.S., right? Like what we bring, the vibrancy, the culture, the colors, the cuisine, just the people too, like the warmth of our people, the history, all these things that we contribute as a people to the nation and to Prince George's County, of course. So, and it's a really good opportunity, not just for Latinos, right, for us to celebrate ourselves and our culture, but also for us to engage with other communities and give them an opportunity to experience it, like experience, the music and the culture and the community aspects and the cuisine's always my favorite, so I'm always going to say that, but just spend some time with another culture. And you'll find, and that those are the moments and the opportunities where we find how much we have in common and how much we can learn to appreciate about each other. And it gives us an opportunity to celebrate together without maybe some of the tensions, right? And without it being so serious, and just having an opportunity to just commune and be in community and have a good time. But there are downsides to that too, right? And it can happen to communities that may feel tokenized, right? They may feel like, oh, you're only celebrating us during this time, right? But when it's something more serious or it's another time of year, you move on. Or also thinking that, and this is something someone I heard say before that it just keeps ringing with me, is that we're only cultural people. So we only sing, dance, and eat traditional foods, right? No, we're also intellectual people, right? We have other topics we want to talk about. We want to talk about the economy. We want to talk about, a business ownership. We want to talk about creating generational wealth, which is actually a topic that's coming up with Maryland Latinos Unidos. We're doing a summit on financial empowerment and creating wealth within the Latino community, which is a conversation that isn't often had, so we have the opportunity to also show the depth of our communities. And I think that that's very important. And I think that all Heritage Months should just be momentum builders, right? So we build momentum, we get excitement, and how do we take that all throughout the year? And I think that is, that's how it should be, right? It shouldn't be on and off like a switch, it should be on and we build momentum. And then there are opportunities too to understand our collective history. Things like the diasporas, right? With our Afro-Latino, brothers and sisters, we talk about the diaspora in that, and even myself being from the Caribbean, understanding how our histories intersect. From like the transatlantic slave trade, and how stopping in the Caribbean islands, these different things that have happened in our collective history and how much that we don't talk about that. Sometimes we don't talk about it within our own communities, let alone with other communities. So having an opportunity to just share that history and educate ourselves and each other can really help us to build community. So Hispanic Heritage Month is more than just, fiesta, like the party, even though I love a good party. But it's also an opportunity to open up dialogue and to connect with each other.
Thank you very much. Tiana or Audrey, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I love what you just said about how the Heritage Month should be momentum builders like that. If we can get a highlight quote, Kyla or Audrey, if you guys want to, I don't know. I just feel like that quote should be highlighted. But so I do see you a lot on Facebook. That's the majority of where I see you. And you're always in the community. So where can people find you next in the community?
So we did share at the beginning of the month, we shared our Hispanic Heritage Month events list, and I will be at every single one of those events. But I often do share on either Facebook or on my LinkedIn where I'm going to be, what events I'm going to be going to. And we try to stay, while I have an advisory role that works, in our main offices, and I spend a lot of time in a lot of task force and committees and things like that on topics that affect the Latino community, I must and have always made it a priority to stay connected with our community. The work is not done there. the work is not done of the community knowing that this role exists. The work isn't done of hearing everyone. I mean, it's a lot of residents. It's 250,000 residents, and there's just me. So there will always be an opportunity for me to connect with someone new. And I want to remain approachable and visible, and I want to learn. I don't feel that I will ever learn everything there is to know about our community, especially as our community grows and evolves. So I want to make sure that I'm constantly learning about community. And the only way for me to be able to do that is to be boots on the ground with my community, in community. And that is a big, big, big priority for me. So check us out on Facebook. You'll see us in our newsletter, as well as on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find where we're going to be, either myself or my assistant Maria or our board members. They are very active, and I'm so grateful to this board. They are extremely active. There are times where I can't be at an event, because you can imagine, right? There's a ton of events, and they are always present in the community, taking this role so seriously and being also very approachable and very accessible to the community. So yeah.
I'm going to ask the intellectual question because I'm the library person. So do you have any favorite books, any books you'd like to recommend to our community? Any favorite authors? Anything you're reading right now?
So I do. It's Hispanic Heritage Month, so I'm not reading anything right now because I don't have time to stop. But we actually have an event coming up with the library, and it is with our board members. So we will all be reading excerpts from our favorite books. My excerpt is going to come from La Charca, which is by Manuel Senogandia. And this book I read early on when I was young. I think I might have been like in ninth grade, which is ninth grade in Puerto Rico is actually still middle school, because high school is 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So I read it in ninth grade, and it's a book about social stagnation. And it really stuck with me. And I want to make sure that in my life, I continually move forward. And I want that for my community too. I don't want my community to stagnate. So this book has it's a very sad story. It's not a happy ending book, but in its sadness, it really does motivate me to keep pushing forward, to always evolve, and to never stagnate, and to never let life run me, like I'm going to run my life. I'm not going to let life run me. And so that's one of my favorite books. But I mean, I could give you a million books. I do. And this is something that for our youth, if we have any young people that are seeing this, the importance of reading in Spanish when you're bilingual, it is so good for like your language development. And don't think with some of these books that I read, sometimes I have to have my little Real Lengua Española dictionaries so I can figure out what this word means, because it might not be in my current vocabulary. And it's just really nice. It exercises the brain, it helps you with your language development, and it helps you retener el idioma, like to retain your language, because it's quite complex being bilingual. And I only know 2 languages. I know some people that know several languages. And I've always found it that if I exercise it by reading in Spanish, as well as like reading in Spanish to my children, it helps with language development. It helps to retain that language, and it eases kind of like the strain of going between one language to another. So come to that event. We will be having that really soon at the Public Library System, and we're so excited to partner with the library system for that event.
Thank you so much.
Did you tell us when that was?
No, I don't
Not
think I did.
on the spot. You can also say refer back to the library calendar.
The library person who's in the
room.
I don't remember when it is. I know that it is coming up, but no, I don't remember right at this moment when it is.
That sounds like the librarian will find it and put it in the chat. For viewers. And speaking of the chat, I do want to let people who are watching know that we have been putting links in the chat, including to the Facebook, where you can find the Latino Affairs Office. We've also been putting direct links to the webpage a couple of different times in the chat where you're watching. If for some reason you're not able to access chat where you're watching, you can, I'm sorry to say this, but you can Google Prince George's County or PGC Latino affairs, and the first thing that pops up is going to be that office for Prince George's County government for the Latino affairs liaison. So please make sure that you find Samantha's office on Facebook and also on the web. And with that in mind,
oh wait, I got the date.
Okay.
Here. So we're October 4th from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. at the Bladensburg Library. It's called Celebrating Our Stories, a reading and panel discussion presented by members of the Prince George's County Latino Advisory Board. So please come. It's a new building and we're very proud of it. And it's a great staff there. And it looks like a really great event.
Thank you.
We're really excited. This is the first time the board is doing an event like this, and we represent so many different countries. So I think it'll be a treat. Everyone will be able to see authors across the world that day.
That's cool. It sounds like a great event. It sounds like a great way to hear and learn. Like I just want to say, I know that Audrey said that the library is asking the intellectual question, but the Office of Human Rights can be intellectual sometimes.
They
too.
can.
And we love books, so we might have to come to that and figure out new books and new authors too. So you might see us.
Yeah.
But as we're talking about links and putting information where people can find you, we've got a few minutes left. And so I don't want to miss the opportunity for you to tell people who are listening right now, where can they, I put some links in the chat, but is there a phone number? How do you want people to come to you if they want to learn more? Is there a phone?
So
email,
we do have a website. We have a website and all of our contact information is there. All of our links are there. If you're able to sign up for the newsletter, it's so important that you do. Latino Affairs at co.pg.md.us is a great way to contact us. And of course, when you see us in the community, please feel free to approach us. We're very approachable, very friendly bunch. And those are the best ways to connect with us. And then, understanding that we'll send out information. We'll make sure that more information gets out, and we're constantly dropping things in WhatsApp groups. So even if you're not necessarily following our pages, if you're in another WhatsApp group, I know that some of the districts have WhatsApp groups, some of the municipalities have WhatsApp groups too. And that's another thing. We do share our information with the municipalities as well. So it's getting out one way or another to our community. So just keep your eyes open. And if you see Latino Affairs on something, then know that that's us and we're waiting for you at our events.
Awesome. It has been great. It has been great having you. We're pretty much out of time, unless Audrey or Tiana have a super fast question. No? Okay. No. But we have had great, I put up some comments. We've got active viewers in the chat with questions and comments, including, thanks for your being here and for what you're doing. And so I also want to thank you for being with us today and for all that you are doing for Prince George's County residents. And for all of those of you who joined us or watching on demand later, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us. You are why we are doing what we do. Please join us for some of our other upcoming events. We have lots. We're very excited. Next week, our Lunch and Learn continues at noon on Tuesday. Coming up, we have Judge David Tatel about this book, Vision, a memoir of blindness and justice. And we're very excited about that. And then on October 24th, we have another community conversation coming up featuring our language access program. And so, as I said at the beginning, the Office of Human Rights oversees language access compliance, which ensures that all county residents can, not all county residents, anybody can access all county government services in the language of their preference. And so we're going to do a whole program, community conversation about that at 4:00 on October 24th. So it is a fantastic program. We want you to come and learn about it. So you can see all of the things that our friends at the library are doing. And our friends at the library are doing a lot. They have 35 every day. I'm making up numbers now, but a lot. They have a lot of programs every day. And you can see what they're doing at pgcmls.info/events. And it's just great. So spend some time on their website and see what's going on. And you can also see what we are doing by visiting civilrights.mypgc.us. And we've got lots of events, but you can also learn about our 4 divisions by going to our website. So again, thank you so much, Samantha. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And truly, you're doing awesome things for the county, for the state. It's very exciting. And we were really glad to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for this time in this space. It really does mean a lot to me.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you soon.